Hi, Andy. Welcome to If Innovation Could Talk.
Hey Eva, how you going?
I'm good, Andy. Now, Andy, tell us, we always hear about the cool technology, the new technology, all the groovy stuff. Why is that important, but not as important as the problem they solve?
So, look, I mean, it's a great question, Eva. So, I think one of the things that we do as human beings is we actually we're drawn towards the new shiny things. So, and marketers and sales companies they play into this human behavior side of things to actually get us to the point where we just want the new, we want the new iPhone, we want the all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, what we've got to remember is that we've got all of these things to help us solve problems on a day-to-day basis, right? And there are lots of different ways of solving problems. One of the when I'm actually doing speaking events or workshops, one of the things I always say is that if the problem that we have today is to take notes and write, structure and all those kind of things, a $2,000 iPad, right, is competition for a pen and paper, right? Yes, the iPad can do other things as well. And yes, it's shiny. And yes, it's great. And yes, it's got the marketing campaign. And it is pretty cool because I was looking at some before. But to do the job, a pen and paper can still do the same thing. And a pencil and paper can still do the same thing. And I think as human beings, we actually lose sight of that. And so when I'm working with people, I actually like to bring them back to what's the actual problem that we're solving? So what's the human problem? And who's the human or the humans that have that problem? So rather than thinking about, I'm just going to get excited and I'm going to read reports and I'm going to buy something because it's the latest trend, let's actually come back to the human aspect and actually sit there and work through that to go, actually, you know what, we can solve this problem in a different way. And it doesn't always have to be the latest and greatest.
I agree. I've always thought of technology as an enabler, and it's all about the humans. So, coming back to the humans, what is the one skill that you think is fundamental for everyone? Is there such a thing? What would it be? What does it look like?
Look, I think for me, I mean, you can look at this, with the league tables that come out at the moment and, for skills of the future. And a lot of them start with, C, so curiosity, complex problem solving, creativity, all those type of things are what is coming to the forefront. But I think the number one thing that if I had to pick one, because you asked me about one, is really, I think it's taking an empathy driven approach. So I think it's, I use this terminology a lot, and it probably comes from when I was a kid, things stick in your mind, but it's the two ears and one mouth. And I don't think we do that enough. We don't actually sit there and go, we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. And, for me is actually getting down to that open-ended questioning. So driving out the empathy. What's the real reason that someone's got a problem? And, potentially what have they done to solve it in the past? And that can give you an insight into what they're looking for in the future.
What do you think the future of problem solving and business look like?
For me, the focus of problem solving is again, right, it's stacked on top of that empathy driven approach. So it really comes back to how do we understand how we've solved a problem in the past? How big a problem is it really? And then how else can I potentially solve that problem? I think this is the trick, and especially for larger businesses as well, right? Because they're complex beasts, they're based on an ecosystem, they've got systems and processes and KPIs, right? They're really, really complex. And so I think sometimes what happens is when people are looking at solving problems, they're trying to solve everybody's problem all at the same time. And so actually bringing it back into smaller problem solving, so individual problem solving or smaller group problem solving, I think is going to be really, really important, especially as we see, I think that not the disintegration of corporate structures, but I think it's more of the, how people can work in different ways, right? How we can engage with organizations, coming back to, I guess, what we're doing now on Zoom, is the technology for this was invented over 20 years ago, but it took a pandemic for organizations to actually go, you know what, this is actually okay. It's probably not as good all the time as being, you know, face to face, but it's okay for lots of things. And it's okay-ish for certain things. So I think, you know, coming back to how do we then start to build those businesses of the future by actually building flexibility and adaptability into what they're doing and around their problem solving.
Annie, I feel like we have only just touched the surface today. So in the interest of time, I have to let you go, but we'll have to revisit this one day because I know a lot of companies pay you good money for such advice. So thank you for sharing so generously with If Innovation Could Talk. We really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Eva. It was great to talk to you.